Welcome to this video in which I'll be reviewing Horizen 2 by the Synth Factory. Those who are regular viewers to the channel know that I usually offer synth overview and tutorial videos, but the Synth Factory offered to give me the chance of reviewing Horizen, and given that it's a synth offering 10 layers made up of a combination of virtual analog, wavetable and sample-based elements that has perhaps not received the attention of some of its competitors in the VST marketplace, I believe it's worth bringing to your attention if you're in the market for just such a VST. I'd like to thank the Synth Factory for supplying Horizen for review, but would stress that all the opinions I express are my own, and Synth Factory have not sponsored or have any say in the content of this video. When installing Horizen, I was a little worried that the large sample content provided would use up a large chunk of my VST folder. But I'm pleased to report that the sample content can be installed to a location of your choosing. So the 12.3 GB sample folder is installed on my secondary drive that I try to reserve for samples where possible. After installation, you're presented with a good-looking visual interface that has clearly been well thought out. Each of the 10 layers is selected from tabs at the top, and the central third of the screen has 4 duties that are selected by buttons at the base of the screen. The fun and intuitive XY pad, the mod section, the player section offering 2 arpeggiators and a chord player, and the effects section offering 4 sound effects per layer. And that's the important thing to realise here. All the controls you see on screen, with the exception of the master effects, are per layer. Each layer has its own EQ, 4 effect sends, 6 LFOs, 4 mod envelopes, plus all the filter, envelope and unison controls that you can see visible here. So, looking at the top tabs, you'll see that you can have 4 sample layers, 4 synth layers, which can be virtual analog or wavetable, and 2 further layers labelled loop into which you can import your own samples. So if I start with the sampler section, you'll see that you can select from a wide variety of samples. You won't find multi-sample pianos and guitars here, but you will find an inventive selection of samples that invite experimentation, such as atmospheric drones and pads. Samples that require it are pre-looped, and as well as the controls that you might expect, you can also reverse and offset the start of samples. So if we consider the signal flowing from top to bottom, after passing through the envelope, you can modulate the amplitude and pitch by independent LFOs, here labelled tremolo and vibrato. The unison applies to sampled layers as well as synth layers, and I found that dissonant and atmospheric samples mangled and multiplied nicely for soundscape type patches. As well as the spread and detune parameters, you can modulate the depth with an LFO, again useful for evolving soundscapes and sound effects. The left column is rounded out with a waveform display offering 3 views, the most useful of which is the spectrum display, though you can also switch this off. The control section allows you to add additional layers an octave above and below the main pitch, and this can be very handy for thickening out sounds. Moving to the right half of Horizen, there are 9 different filter types on offer with a dedicated envelope. The FM section lets you apply FM to the layer that you're working on from a selection of 9 shapes, and the depth can be modulated by an LFO. Applying FM to a sampled layer can grunge up the sample, which can be another plus when creating soundscapes and textures. Each layer has the 4 effect sends and its own EQ, as I mentioned earlier. So let's have a look at the center section, beginning with the XY pad. As you can see, I've selected this patch Piano Reaper, and it's made up of 4 sampler layers, and we're modulating between them using this. So we're adjusting the levels of each section using the XY pad. Now you can also load up patterns. So if we select, let's select a star shape. You'll see that if I hit play, you'll see that it's drawing out a star shape, and the bow shapes. Equally, it's very simple to record your own patterns. If I simply select record and move the center dot around and then hit play, you'll see that it's following the pattern that I set, and you can adjust the speed. You can halve the speed and double the speed. and obviously that is synced to your clock as well of your door. So let's have a look at the mod section. In Horizen they've taken quite a novel approach, and you can see LFOs and modulation, key mod, etc. are listed in the center here. Now these are quite versatile, that you can literally drag and drop. So let's take LFO. If we want to apply that, say, to the FM amount, we can drag LFO down there and adjust the amount, and LFO1 will now affect FM. So if we want to set custom values, we literally double click and we can draw in our own LFO, design our own LFO. We can also select from a number of presets here, like so, and we can also select from traditional LFOs up here, so sine wave, triangle wave, saw, etc. So a very versatile system. You can also, as you can see, select a gate value, from which again you can select a number of presets and just draw in your own values. You can also select a smooth value so that you're not sort of stepping roughly between amounts. You can select smooth, and there's also fade in. Offset the phase, and simply more steps, dial in more steps, and away you go. So very versatile LFO and modulation section. Very easy to drag and drop to the destination, and you can assign them to virtually anything very quickly, very easily. The player section has two ARPs, and you can select the layers to be arpeggiated like so. The chord section allows you to trigger 16th chords that you're free to edit. So in summary, what are the main strengths of Horizen 2? Well, the VST market is crowded and lots of companies are competing for your cash, so the Synth Factory are to be applauded for coming up with a synth with such an ambitious specification. If you're looking at a synth offering multiple layers with sample and synthesis capabilities, then Dune, Rapid and Phase Plant spring to mind as the competition for Horizen, with Omnisphere being a much more expensive option. So leaving aside Omnisphere, and compared to the other synths I mentioned, I suppose the main strength of Horizen is in its ability to quickly create rich, multi-layered textures, drones and pads. It's also capable of more modern in-your-face type sounds than my examples would suggest, but the combination of multi-layers with samples and synthesis means that it will probably always excel at complex, evolving multi-layered patches. The well-thought-out interface with the use of tabs also makes it a quick synth to find your way around and to learn. As the new kid on the block compared to the other synths I mentioned, it's fair to say that Horizen seems a little less polished than its rivals. It's not easy to loop or edit imported samples, and crossfades aren't implemented yet. Wavetable choice is a bit limited, and global settings such as velocity sensitivity would be a welcome addition. However, the Synth Factory are responsive to suggestions and addressed all the points that I raised with them. Work is already underway on a version implementing new effects and expansion packs, and at some stage in the future, the loop wave window is set to get a revamp to make it easier to see the finer details working with samples. Time stretching has been mentioned, and in the future the envelopes may well be more graphical in a similar way to the LFOs and mod section in the centre. This gives me confidence in the future of Horizen, and offers the chance to turn an already capable synth into a more complete instrument when these changes are implemented. I look forward to bringing news of improvements to Horizen in the near future, as it's a well thought out synth with lots of potential. In the meantime, you can try out the demo of Horizen for yourself. The link is in the description. To finish, I'll play out with a few other example patches from Horizen. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. It's free, and if you select the notification bell, you'll be kept up to date with new videos as they're released. So until the next one, thanks for watching.